What's good? What's good? Happy Friday afternoon, November 1st. Hope everybody had a great Halloween yesterday. Just checking in today on a midday live stream, Cops and Convicts. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm going to get that down. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit the thumbs up, hit that share button so you can help us expand this channel. Let's get into it. I interviewed Vance Harris, former inmate at Folsom State Prison. And at some point, I'm going to get into a reaction to many of the things that he said. But one of the things I want to react to is illegal behavior inside of the prison system and not by the inmates. Let's react to this video that Vance and I filmed. What's today? Friday. We shot this on Wednesday. By the way, give your boy a little bit of that. My sorry Jets won last night. The night before that, the Knicks won. I know it doesn't make up for the Yankees losing. Hey, shout out to the Dodgers and all the Dodger fans. Y'all had the better team. Plain and simple. And for the record, I predicted the Yankees would either be swept or gentlemen swept. And they got gentlemen swept. And they earned it. They were not good. They were not good. So let's get into this video.
Talk to women on dating sites.
Let's rewind this a little bit. All right, check it out.
Use our phones to talk to women on dating sites. And, and just develop a relationship.
How'd you get the phone in the prison?
Oh, the COs, man. They bring it to the staff and they bring it to you.
So, Anthony told me that last night.
Yeah.
So, he had told me that one of the phones, he had to pay $13,000 for a phone.
Yes, so the most I ever paid was 10.
Stop.
I swear to God.
Okay. So what you just heard there was Vance talking about the fact that the most he ever paid to have a cell phone in prison was $10,000. A colleague of his told me the night before that the most he had to pay was $13,000. I need you to let that sink in. These two guys, I never asked Anthony where he went to prison, but these two guys both spent time in prison. One spent 13 years, the other spent 14 years. And they had cell phones in prison. You heard Vance say it. He was on his cell phone talking to women on dating sites. And you heard me ask him, how'd you get the cell phone? He said the correctional officers bring them in. So when you think about all the things that prisoners get caught with and have to spend time in the hole with or get transferred to a higher security prison, I interviewed Elijah Baker. I think it was last month. And he had a cell phone. And he got caught with his cell phone when he was in a minimum security facility. But when he got caught with the cell phone, his punishment was to get transferred to a medium security prison. What I want to know is, what is the penalty? Because there doesn't seem to be any. What's the penalty for correction officers who are bringing in contraband, stuff that should not be in a prison? Cell phone, drugs, anything that inmates get in trouble for or get written up for or get transferred for having in their possession. How does this stuff get into the prison? The correctional officers. So the thing about it is, members of law enforcement they don't talk about the things that they don't tend to talk about the things that they see inside of their profession. When I've talked to them about cops doing bad things, they admit to knowing of cops doing bad things, but I haven't had anybody really talk about what those bad things are. But inmates on a regular basis, you have 3 separate inmates that I've spoken to on the Cops and Comics podcast talking about we had cell phones, the correctional officers bringing the cell phones, but there's a code. They don't snitch, and they're not going to snitch on the CO who's bringing in things that they want because they don't want to cut off that flow of the things that they want. I also asked Vance during our podcast interview about the amount of drugs that are in the prisons. And he told me that inmates do drugs to escape the reality of being in prison. And he gave me a number of examples of things of what inmates would want to be escaping, not just being in the facility, but just mental stuff. And so I asked him about the drugs. And I asked him, in the 14 years you were locked up, how many people do you think you saw overdose or heard about overdosing and dying? And he thought about it and he said, probably 50. So I'm like, as a guy who's never been in prison, I'm looking at that saying, don't you see that as being problematic? And Vance kind of defended it. He said, listen, people need to do their stuff to cope with being in prison. And we're not going to snitch on how those drugs that we want are getting into prison. We're not going to snitch on how the cell phones are getting into prison. And we're not going to snitch on the exorbitant amounts of money that we're paying to have a cell phone in prison. $13,000. Look, I like my iPhone. $13,000 for an iPhone, $10,000 for an iPhone. So the COs are supplementing their income with, at the very least, the cell phone hustle. They're supplementing their incomes by making sure that they're charging whatever amount they're charging for the drugs to be inside the prisons. And we as taxpayers don't know anything about it. I have a problem. Listen, I feel 2 ways about this. If you're in prison and you're doing time, whatever you can get away with while you're doing that time, I can't say I'm mad at you. I can't. I'm not going to sit here and judge people who are paying their debt to society and they want a cell phone, they got a cell phone. They want to smoke weed, they have their fix, whatever it is that their vice is. I'm not mad at them. However, you have members of law enforcement and correctional officers or members of law enforcement that are taking advantage of their position. You have a demand inside this prison, and you're going to participate in behavior that you know could get you fired, should get you a sentence. Actually, you're supposed to be protecting these people and making sure that the rules and regulations of the prison are being adhered to by the prisoners. You're not adhering to those rules by bringing in contraband so that you can make money. What do you think the penalty should be for that? If you find out that your loved one who's doing time died from a drug overdose because of drugs getting inside the prison, and you found out who brought those drugs inside the prison, how would you feel about that? What would you want to have happen to that person? I'm just asking the question rhetorically. I'd be hot. This is what the system is. Listen, I know my loved one did something wrong, or maybe they didn't because there's innocent people in prison, but my loved one is in prison in your custody and care, and drugs got into the prison because of one of your employees, and now my loved one is dead. These are things that normal people in society, just regular tax-paying citizens like you and I, aren't aware of, that our taxpayer dollars are going toward. And I'm here to talk about it. I'm here to talk about it. You know, here in Los Angeles County, I believe it was last year, there was a juvenile in, not necessarily juvenile hall, but in one of the detention camps. They call them camps. They're actually prisons for juveniles. And one of the kids died from a drug overdose. And his family feels a certain way about it. I mean, my heart goes out to them. Who's paying the penalty for that? The family's going to sue the county. They're going to be awarded an amount of money, and that amount of money is our taxpayer dollars. So what is our government doing about the prison system to keep it more secure? And the security issue is with your own employees. I don't know if correctional officers have to take some sort of oath. I'm going to look into that. But I just wanted to put that out there for you. I wanted to see how you feel about that. Just a quick midday stream reaction video. Let me get this outro music pumping. Comment. Let me know what you think. I always want to hear your feedback on the content that we make. Until next time, thanks for tapping into this midday afternoon live stream on the Cops and Convicts podcast. I'll see you next time. I'm out.